Alright, so we talked about, in part 1, about virulence. Alright, so the degree or extent of disease that a pathogen causes, and you can have a virus, you can have a bacteria, a pathogen, that at one point was virulent, and at a later time is attenuated. And that means that the pathogen is no longer virulent, it's no longer going to cause disease, and it can still survive, but it's been attenuated. It's lost its virulence factors. Alright, so in some cases it can actually take a lot of energy for bacteria to make virulence factors, to go through that metabolic process of creating the virulence factors, and so it's actually advantageous to an extent to the bacteria to stop making those. There can be environmental influences, right, to produce those virulence factors and put into a different environment. Maybe the bacteria doesn't need to make, doesn't have the, doesn't sense the need to make those virulence factors. All right, pathogens can often become attenuated when they are grown in cell culture. All right, that's taking the bacteria and putting it into a human host or an animal cell of some sort, not a human host, say a human being, but rather a human cell. This is done in the lab, and when the bacteria and the viruses, this is a good example for viruses as well, grows in and around these human cells or animal cells, then they actually lose the virulence factors needed to cause disease. All right, they're still able to get into the cells, they're still able to be infectious, but they're weakened, and so they're not pathogenic. And so they don't cause disease in immunocompetent people. All right, immunocompetent, their immune system is ready and able to fight pathogens when they come into the host. All right, but if that person was immunocompromised, all right, then an attenuated virus could actually do some damage. An attenuated pathogen could do some damage. All right, and so sometimes these attenuated pathogens are actually used in vaccines. Why? Because they're actually still infectious, so you intentionally get injected with this. They replicate a little bit, but the immune system is able to stay on top of the infection, clears it out, and in that process, actually, you get a very, very good immune response to that pathogen. All right, two terms here, infectious dose and lethal dose. For a pathogen to establish disease, it first needs to infect the host. That seems like a given. All right, so how much of the pathogen actually needs to get into the host in order to cause disease? Well, this is called infectious dose, and there's what's referred to as infectious dose 50, or ID50 for short. And this is the number of cells, or virions, for the virus, needed to establish an infection in 50% of those who are exposed. All right, so if you had 10 people in a room, and you somehow, this of course is all illegal, all right, and you gave each, how much of a pathogen would you have to give all 10 of those people in order for 5 of them to be sick? All right, so this is the scenario where, everyone's body is going to be a little different. Everyone's health is going to be a little different. Everyone's immune response is going to be a little different. All right, so what is the dose that is at all times always going to make 50% of those exposed sick? Okay, and so also one thing to note is that just because a pathogen is highly infectious doesn't mean it's actually dangerous. All right, so dangerous would be, how easy does it kill? How easy does it cause disease? All right, you can be exposed, and we're exposed to pathogens all the time, but we don't always get sick. Cold viruses, really infectious. And sometimes, a lot of times, we think we might be coming down with a cold. You get that scratchy, itchy throat feeling in the back of your throat, and you kind of start feeling run down, and you go to bed early, and you wake up and you're fine. All right, well, there's a good chance that you actually might have been exposed. You have that cold virus in you because they're everywhere. They are highly infectious. It's easy for it to get from one person to the next, but it's not dangerous, and actually your immune system, your body was able to clear it before it actually caused you to become sick. All right, then there's the lethal dose, 50, the LD50. Specifically, this is looking at, this is looking at toxins as well as bacteria. So the amount of toxin needed to kill 50% of affected hosts that are not treated. All right, so that could also be the LD50. But in this case, you're looking at Bacillus anthracis. All right, what does that cause? It causes anthrax. You've got the anthracis, close connection there. And anthrax can actually be contracted 3 different ways. All right, you've got cutaneous anthrax, respiratory anthrax, and gastrointestinal anthrax. All right, with the spores here, that's not a correct word. All right, you're actually looking at endospores. Bacillus anthracis produces endospores. And with cutaneous anthrax, this is actually quite problematic. You only need 10 to 50 bacterial endospores on your body, all right, in a cut or something, in a scratch, in order for you to get cutaneous anthrax. And cutaneous anthrax would be this pretty nasty ulcer-like disease scenario on your skin. Then there's respiratory anthrax. All right, here you need 10 to 20,000 endospores to actually be inhaled all at one time. It's not just 10 here and 20 days from now and 100 next month. All right, it's all at one time. And then there's gastrointestinal anthrax, where you actually have to ingest 250,000 to 1 million endospores. All right, and that would be some very heavily contaminated food. All right, this would be food poisoning, but still very problematic. All right, and that's the infectious dose. So at 10 to 50 bacterial endospores, 50% of people would come down with cutaneous anthrax. All right, now the LD50, all right, this is still looking at the toxin. All right, and here you need 8.4 micrograms per kilogram. All right, that's actually, not too high. All right, but still, you don't want to play around with that. And you notice that it's in canines, all right, because we don't know what that value really is for humans, all right, and we can't know, because you can't just intentionally inject someone with this and expect not to go to jail for that. So, in canines there. All right, here on the bottom row, you've got botulism toxin A, botulinum toxin A. All right, this is one of the most toxic toxins out there. How toxic is it? All right, it's very toxic, and it is a neurotoxin, so it's going to affect your nervous system, and it's going to be the opposite of tetanus. All right, tetanus causes lockjaw. All right, it causes your muscles to tense up. Botulism, with Botox, all right, it causes the muscles to actually relax. All right, Botox is used to inject under your skin at low amounts so that it relaxes the muscle cells and you no longer have wrinkles. All right, well, if you've got high amounts of this being injected into you, or inhaling it, consuming it, all right, that's actually going to cause a problem with your, say, your lungs, your diaphragm, and you're not going to breathe, and you die by lack of breathing because your diaphragm doesn't work, your muscles don't work. All right, the ID50, it's not applicable. All right, toxins do not have an ID50 because although they are often made by infectious agents, they're not infectious themselves. But, all right, if they are injected Or if you give them orally, look at this value, 0.001 microgram per kilogram. All right, if that is injected into someone, all right, that's huge. That is such a small amount that gets into a person, and it moves throughout their entire body, and it causes flaccid paralysis. All right, your muscles cannot move. You are paralyzed by not being able to move, and that includes your diaphragm. All right, and then if it's inhaled, all right, 0.07, a little higher, but still, a microgram is 10 to the minus 6th gram. So that's not a lot, and this is based on non-human primates. All right, this can be done. It was done legally, but there's still going to be a lot of regulation in that process. All right, so toxins in general, they are major virulent factors. All right, toxins are going to be molecules generated by a wide range of bacteria and have a wide range of adverse host effects. They can be tissue damage, suppress the immune response, suppress muscle activity. All right, so if a bacteria or a microbe of any sort is toxigenic, it makes toxins. And so those are going to be primarily bacteria and then some fungal organisms. If you have toxemia, the toxin is in the bloodstream. And there's two major classes of toxins, endotoxin and exotoxins. And since we're not going to be able to get through either one of these in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to stop here with part 2. And part 3 will be endotoxins and exotoxins.